Have you ever spent your entire day texting, active in like three different group chats, replying to snaps, sending reels, leaving comments, and then you get into your bed at night, you stare at the ceiling, and you feel this like sense of loneliness? Like on paper, you're talking to people all day long. Your screen time says you're connected for like 6 hours, but inside, it tells a different story. Welcome back to Mind Under Construction. And today's question is, why do we talk to people all day yet still feel like nobody truly knows us? And today's episode is another feature episode, joined by my friend Bhavya. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really so excited to be here. And this is one of those conversations that everyone has in their head, but they never really, talk about it. I think a lot of people our age are dealing with this same question and they don't even realize it.
Exactly. So, to kick things off, do you ever look at your screen time report and wonder, even after those numbers, those like 7, 8 hours, you feel like you still haven't spoken to anyone?
All the time. It's really ironic because you're technically interacting with people all day. You're liking stories, you're replying to their messages, you're even doom scrolling, but none of it necessarily feels meaningful. You spend hours online, and still, at the end of the day, you feel so lonely because consumption isn't the same as connection.
Consumption isn't the same as connection. I love that phrase because we spend so much of our time consuming other people's lives, consuming content, that it almost tricks us into thinking that we're being social. But then you put your phone down and you realize you might not have had a proper conversation all day, like the one we're having right now. So, what's the difference for you between simply being in touch with someone and actually feeling seen by them?
So, being in touch with someone literally means maintaining contact with them. However, exchanging a few messages and knowing what's going on in their lives isn't the same as being seen by them. The feeling of being seen is when someone truly notices how you're actually doing without you having to say anything. You know, those people who just get you. You don't have to say anything, you don't have to express your feelings. They just take one glance at you and they know something's off. They remember all the little things. They constantly ask follow up questions and they always find a way to make you feel understood instead of just updated, which I personally think is a wonderful feeling to experience.
It really is. Those are always the conversations that stay with me for like years. The ones where someone asks a question and they actually wait to hear your answer. But on the other side of that, why do you think a room full of notifications can still feel so completely silent?
I think it's because notifications give us activity, not necessarily connection. You can have your phone buzzing all day with Instagram reels, Snapchat streaks, group chats, your phone just buzzing about your friends saying, "Oh my god, I have tea," and then random messages as well. But none of them guarantee that someone actually knows how you're doing. At night, when everything winds down and you're left alone with your thoughts, you realize that what you're actually missing isn't just another notification, it's a meaningful conversation. And I think that's why people can be surrounded by digital connection and still feel incredibly lonely.
Hmm, it's such a strange contradiction, isn't it? We have more ways to reach people than ever before, but still loneliness finds a way in. It's absurd in a way. So, speaking of messages, let's talk about texting for a second. What goes through your mind in those few seconds before you send a risky text, like seeing those little typing dots appear?
My brain completely creates every possible scenario, things that are not even happening, because I'm personally a person who gets super anxious super quickly. If I send a risky text, I'll wonder if I sounded too emotional, if it was too awkward, or if I should have worded it differently, if I should have not said this and maybe said something else instead. Then, when the three dots appeared, It's it just makes me feel even worse now imagining what they're typing. And what's even worse is that sometimes those three dots come and then they just disappear. So that makes my mind think about it even more. It's funny because those few seconds probably aren't even a big deal, but in your own head, they can feel like minutes, even hours. I think almost everyone has had that moment where they overthink a message way more than it's needed.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how tiny three dots can have so much power. And fun fact, that waiting period actually triggers a spike in dopamine. And not the rewarding kind, it's the anticipation kind. It's almost like waiting for a slot machine to stop spinning. So that makes me wonder, is there a specific texting habit, like maybe getting a dry reply or being left on red, that instantly changes your whole mood?
I'd probably say that being left in red or actually getting a really, really dry reply after you've put in a lot of effort to maintain the conversation is not the nicest feeling. In our generation, people text with multiple letters with so many emojis. So when you receive a message that's literally just an O and a K, it's not a very good feeling. Even though I know people can get extremely busy, and not every message needs a long response. There's still that tiny emotional reaction where you start wondering if you said something wrong. And most of the time, it has absolutely nothing to actually do with you. But our brains are really quick to fill in the blanks with all of the negative assumptions. They never really go to the positive side. Learning not to take every delayed or short reply personally has definitely been something I've had to work really hard on, and I still till date work hard on it because I'm being completely honest. Just overthinking about the most tiniest things will just make your brain explode.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Then it's like somehow our brains become these like annoying detectives. Like, have you ever caught yourself over analyzing someone's tone with just a few words? Because I definitely have.
Oh, definitely. I completely agree with you. It's honestly kind of embarrassing when you think about it afterwards. You look at the message like, oh, if it says oh, or like okay, and then suddenly you start spiraling and thinking, why the okay? Why did it only have an O and a K instead of the whole word? And you wonder if they were annoyed or you did something wrong. And then you start noticing things like whether they used an emoji, how long the message actually was, or how long they took to reply. The reality is that that text removes so much emotion from a conversation that we ended up filling in gaps ourselves. And most of the time, we're completely wrong. One other thing that I've noticed about messaging or just texting someone is that on text, you can never ever understand the tone of a person. Even though they're being completely nice to you, it depends on how you are reading the message. So it can be completely wrong.
Exactly. It's all about your own interpretation. And that missing AY in the okay, it generally has the power to ruin an evening. Even though if you look at it from a perspective, it's kind of the same word, but it feels like one takes more effort that you typed out the entire word. And somehow it's even worse, this feeling inside group chats, because they're supposed to like bring everyone together. But sometimes you feel completely invisible inside one. Have you ever felt that?
Yeah, I have. And I think that's a much more common feeling than everyone would like to admit. Sometimes everyone is talking and messages are flying in and out. And sometimes you just feel like you're not really a part of the conversation. You might send something and it gets completely ignored in the and the chat immediately moves on. But it's not always intentional. Sometimes it can be, but it isn't always. And I think that just makes one person feel so invisible. It reminds you that being included in a group chat isn't the same as genuinely feeling included in a friendship.
Exactly. And it's such a weird feeling because technically you're included. You're in the group chat, you're seeing all the messages, you're technically a part of it. But emotionally, it doesn't always feel that way. So, what does your brain tell you when you realize that a side conversation or even some plans happened without you?
As I mentioned, I am a person who gets really anxious really quickly. So if I do find out something like this has happened, I wouldn't, necessarily take it too much to heart that, oh, okay, it's okay. They just had a hangout without me. It's not that deep. But I will still think about it and I will constantly come back to the question, did I do something wrong? Even if there is absolutely no evidence for it, I think a lot of people naturally assume that there is a reason why they weren't included, and they start taking the blame on themselves. But when you actually take a step back and you realize there are so many more explanations to why maybe the plan did not include you. It can be that the plan was just too spontaneous, or maybe they just simply forgot, and maybe it just happened naturally. It could be like a circumstance where they just bumped into each other and decided to go for coffee later, right? I've learned that your first emotional reaction isn't always the most accurate one. And over time, you have to learn how to take control of your emotions.
Exactly. Sometimes, sometimes not being included in some sort of hangout or some sort of event, it's not always intentional. There are a lot of factors going on. Maybe they've had to invite someone that you don't get along with. Maybe, like you said, it was spontaneous. And I think this thing is something that a lot of us need to hear because our brains are really good at filling in those blank spaces with the absolute worst possible explanations. Because sometimes, if you prepare yourself for the worst case, hearing the actual reason feels easier. So, why do you think it's become so increasingly easy to feel this replaceable in modern friendships?
I think the main reason why friendships come and go so easily is because of social media. Every day, we're seeing people with hundreds of thousands of followers, dozens of friends, and constant interactions. So it creates this illusion that everyone is easily replaceable. Then you start thinking, if I stop texting, someone else will just take my place because I know they're not going to do it first. But real friendships do not work like that. The person who genuinely values you aren't always looking for a replacement every single time you're not around. If something happens, if a friend needs you, if you're not available, if they turn to someone who they aren't getting along with at the moment, or they just have some unsaid beef with them, they're not your real friend. A real friend genuinely stays and waits for your response because they don't blindly trust anyone else. And I think social media just makes us compare ourselves far more than we really should. Everything's edited, everything's posted with filters. It's just not realistic.
Yeah, and this comparison really does sneak into everything. You find yourself comparing with other friends, other people, the way people around you act, and sometimes it even changes the way that you depend on certain people. So, yeah, so have you ever leaned on one friend so heavily that their mood ended up affecting your own?
I think a lot of people have experienced this at some point in their life. When someone becomes your main source of comfort, reassurance, and support, their mood naturally starts affecting yours too. If they're happy, you feel better. If they're distant, or if they're having a bad day, suddenly your whole mood just changes. It usually doesn't happen intentionally, but it definitely develops over time. But eventually, you realize it's important to have different people you can rely on instead of just expecting one person to carry your emotional needs. However, I don't disagree with the fact that you should rely on just one person because there are times when someone does not feel comfortable with anyone else. They have been, for example, they have been friends with someone for the longest time. They don't trust anyone else's opinion. And something or the other happens in their daily life that affects you because their mood is distant. So, yes, it has happened with me, but I personally feel like I have learned how to deal with it. And everyone else who's facing this problem over time will learn how to deal with it too.
Yeah, I agree with your point and I understand that. But it's also important to have a whole support system instead of relying completely on one person. It's like you said, it's perfectly okay and natural to rely on one person more than others, like your best friend, someone you trust, someone who you find comfort in. However, a total reliance, I feel, isn't healthy for us nor for the way our brain works. And it's something that no
Yes.
one really talks about. Instead, it's just kind of one of those unsaid things. So, speaking of unsaid things, why do you think our generation struggles so much with spreading our emotional needs and our own wants, our own needs across multiple people instead of putting everything into one friendship?
I think it's because genuine trust becomes a lot harder to build. So, we know a lot of people, we interact with a lot of people. We go to school, we go to college, office, we even step out of the house. We bump into people we know, we make friends, we interact with everyone. But not everyone is a friend. They can always be an acquaintance, people at once. So, it's really, really easy to put all of our emotional expectations onto that one friendship. And the problem is that no single person can realistically meet every single emotional need we have. I think healthy friendships happen when you have different people to turn to for different kinds of support. For example, you know, you have some friends that are just good to go to a cafe with, for cafe hopping. Then some friends are just good to just relax with, like pour out your whole heart, the ones you genuinely trust. Then some friends are just good at teaching you, good at helping you study. Those are things that I personally feel is extremely good to have. Like those are friendships that are actually good to have because you can rely on multiple people and not just put all of your emotional strain on one person. Because personally, helping just one person or just being around one person makes it not only difficult for it out like, whoa, why so much information only on me, right?
Right. That makes sense, honestly. It depends on the kind of relationship you have with the person, the kind of vibe that's going on. And this leads perfectly on to my next question. How do you know when a friendship has crossed the line from a healthy closeness into a total dependency?
So for me, it's when your emotional state depends more on them than on yourself. So if one delayed reply can ruin your whole mood, or you constantly need the reassurance before making decisions, that's probably a sign that that friendship becomes a little too unhealthy. Healthy closeness gives you comfort, but dependency makes you feel like you cannot function without the other person. And that's a bigger difference between appreciating someone and also relying on them for your entire emotional stability.
I really like that distinction. Appreciating someone isn't the same as depending on them. So if texting isn't actually giving us real connection, which we've established, what actually makes you feel genuinely safe with a friend?
So for me, it's consistency, not necessarily every single day, but knowing that the friendship does not disappear just because life gets too busy. It's the people who check in without needing a reason. Remember the little things you've told them. and make you feel like you don't have to pretend to be someone else around them. I think feeling emotionally safe is less about how often you talk to that person and how accepted you feel whenever you do something. Um, for me, I have had friendships where me and my friend don't talk for multiple days on end because we both are busy. However, when say nothing has changed is real friendship. That is how you know that you found a genuine safe friend.
I love that. And that's a really comforting way to look at it. We all have that one friend, and so do I. And I love the fact that no matter how much time passes, you just know that you have that one person beside you. Because it's like the conversation never stopped just because you don't talk every day. And okay, before we wrap up, my last question is, what's one practical boundary or habit you built to stop your phone from dictating your mental peace?
So I've honestly stopped expecting instant replies from people. After a point, I've just realized that it's something that I don't have to eat my brain about. I used to think that if someone did not reply quickly, it automatically meant that I did something wrong or something is just off. But that's not realistic at all. Everyone has their own schedules, they have their own responsibilities, they have their own priorities. I've also started reminding myself that not every when I'm spending time with my family, with my friends, I try to keep my phone as far as possible because I'd rather be fully present in the moment in real life conversations than consistently being distracted by the online ones that I know are not going to matter in some time. That small habit has honestly made a huge difference in my mental peace.
Hmm. I actually love that. It's really important to set boundaries and not necessarily the ones that you hear from other people. Boundaries that work for you, your comfort, and your schedule. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from today's conversation. Technology has made it easier than ever to reach people, but the things that actually make us feel connected haven't really changed. It's still consistent. It's curiosity, it's being present, and it's reminding ourselves that a delayed reply doesn't define our worth. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your perspective. And thank you for opening up in today's conversation. I know that can't have been too easy. So this is Mind Under Construction, and we're all just a bunch of unfinished bits and bobs, just trying to figure out the next layout. So until next time, I hope to have you on again soon.